Kumusta? I'm Kat Chan. I'm the Executive Director of the Idea Space Foundation and Kubo Innovation Hub. We're an organization that works with a lot of startups here in the Philippines, and we're trying to build a globally competitive startup ecosystem. And today, I'm going to be telling you about my startup story. So what is a startup anyway? I guess we kind of look at three things, right? A startup is sort of a temporary state. It's a project. No one stays a startup forever. But we look at startups as organizations and businesses that have the potential to be highly scalable. A lot of that usually has to do with use of tech and working to solve a problem where the solution is not obvious, so involving a lot of innovation. And when you find the magic of a startup, many times it will be difficult at first. There's a dip of disappointment and lots of challenges. But if you truly are a first mover in the market and you've created something that's unique and special, you can expect to see exponential growth and something can go very, very quickly and change a lot of lives. At Kubo and the hundreds of startups that we've worked with, we kind of think about the different things that go into making a startup. And I guess that's sort of similar to how I want to share my story about how I grew my own startup. And we look at really 5 things: the idea or the problem, the market, the product or the traction of your company, your team, and of course, timing and luck. And all of those things go into making a startup. And if you want to learn more about that, we have plenty of classes that talk about these things. So let me dive into it. I guess there's a pre-startup Kat. And I'm actually a Filipina, born and raised here. I went to Philippine Science High School, and I studied in college. I did a double degree in engineering and business. And after I did a bit of work abroad, when I came back to the Philippines, I actually started my startup journey as an intern in Idea Space. Many of my friends and my colleagues in college in the US were actually, working in the startup space. But here in the Philippines, it was really difficult to find the startup community. It wasn't quite as popular as it might be in other places. So what's the idea, right? Like the first element that I talked about. The idea was, how might we build a startup ecosystem here in the Philippines? And as a Filipino lady, there are plenty of things that I love about the Philippines. We're pretty known for our beaches, our dried mangoes. And, as a lady, oftentimes when people say, you're a Filipina, they say, they think about nursing or they think about beauty queens. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with any of those things. But I also didn't feel like it resonated with where I saw a lot of potential and what I was seeing out in the world. And, there's this one, shown on the slide, there's one thing that really resonated with me, which is around the time when we were starting Kubo. The whole economic output of the Philippines, our GDP, right, was less than a third or half of the revenues of just 5 tech startup companies in the US. And all of these companies that were kind of massive, right, country-sized in terms of what they were producing in the world, they were all started by 1 or 2 notably guys, maybe in the US or in China. And for me, what that made me think of was, there's absolutely no reason why we can't build that here, why we can't create those jobs, why we can't solve those kinds of problems. The Philippines is definitely not Palo Alto. You see a photo here of the Bahay Kubo, which inspired our organization, versus the Silicon Valley garage, right? And you can think of them as humble beginnings, all the same. But, there are so many problems and issues and ideas that can be built here that we understand as Filipinos that you can build that, maybe, guys in Silicon Valley or in China or wherever, right, might not be able to come up with. And a lot of it, again, the idea, it's not about what app you build, what building you put up or what technology underlying it, at the end of the day, it's about solving a problem that you're passionate about, that you believe in. And there's so many problems and so many things that you can build and you can solve. And that was really the inspiration behind the Bahay Kubo. So at the end of the day, our vision and our idea as Filipino startups changing the world. So actually the product itself is something that evolved over time. But right now, like what we're focusing on is kind of 4 key things. First is to grow the startup community. There's still so many people that aren't aware of the opportunities that exist within the startup world. I think the common thing when you go to college maybe is that your parents will tell you, hey, like we didn't like send you to school just to risk it all and do a startup, right? But there are many things that can be done in this space. The second is if you've already decided to take that leap, you're interested, right? Like we want to help you develop and grow your startup. So in addition to helping you find mentors and build a network, we offer a number of incubation acceleration programs. And to date, we've worked with hundreds of startups that have also started this journey like once at some point and are now building massive businesses, right? The third thing, of course, is the money. We do invest in startups, especially in the early stage, because, of course, like, unless you were born with a certain last name, right? Like, you do need these investment funds to help you grow and scale up your business. And last but not the least, we really believe in collaboration. So for all the Filipinos listening, right, the Bahay Kubo is really about bayanihan and teamwork. And we really believe that it takes a lot of collaboration, different actors working together for you to be able to grow and scale up your businesses and achieve what you're looking for. So that's the product. It's constantly evolving, and we see this with all the entrepreneurs we're working with. We're also testing out the different things that work and don't work. But I think the next thing that I want to talk about, and the third ingredient of a startup, is traction. So what's traction, right? Like, are people using and actually, are you making the impact or the difference that you want to make in the world? And the best way to know that isn't just by kind of having that idea in your head. It's about making sure that you're interacting with your customers and actually getting your thing out there. In our case, as I've said, through a lot of experimentation, now we work with hundreds of startups. We're super active and we do, I don't know, like at least 2 or 3 events a week. So again, if you want to join anything, please check it out. But I think at the end of the day, like we've come to the point where we've built a community of hundreds of startups and invested in a number of them. And not every single one will be a success, but I think the important thing is that you actually go out there and test your idea. So a few final points, and the team is really important. Like nobody builds a scalable company by themselves. So in my case, I had a lot of help. You want to build a diverse team around you with different kinds of skills. Like in the startup world, we like to say the hackers, the hipsters, and the hustlers, right? And with the cuties, they've been really instrumental in this journey, and as an entrepreneur, that's something I encourage you to do. We also work with a lot of partners, so we might not be the experts in so many fields, but we're able to work with people because we work with other organizations and giants that we can collaborate with, and I encourage you definitely to do the same. So those are the ingredients of the startup, like the idea and solving a problem, the team, market, and traction, right? But at the end of the day, like timing and luck is also a key thing. We're always dreaming of finding the unicorn or the billion-dollar idea and company. But, I'd like to think that having a kalabaw, right, like a company that works hard is not that bad at all. And like we can still make a lot of impact and build something just by, kind of hustling and working on these different parts. So just very quickly, my 3 key takeaways that I hope you get from this talk. First of all, don't be afraid to just test it out. Pursue your idea. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, but just iterate and work on it and actually get what you're trying to build out into the market. The second thing is, it's okay to fail, or in startup jargon, to just pivot, right? I think there's a lot of things in our culture that sometimes make us afraid to just go for what we're trying, and you'll never really see what you're able to do unless you, again, are willing to just try it out, some help along the way. Every entrepreneur that I've worked with has experienced some kind of failure in their journey, and that's not something that you should be afraid of or ashamed of in any way. And last but not the least, going back to the Bahay Kubo and Bayanihan, I think it's really important that you collaborate. Again, ask for help, work with others, build on what you can learn, not just from yourself, but from your team, with the different organizations around you, and be open to listening and kind of working with other people. And that's really the way that you're able to scale your entrepreneurial dream. So yeah, those are my tips and my story about startups, and thank you very much.